Yeah. Love you. Alrighty. Well, hello. Welcome to Tasting Tuesday. And Tasting Tuesday, if you're new, Tasting Tuesday is a celebration of wine. And what we do mainly is focus on Virginia wine. So if you're out there, say hello, tell us where you're from, what's in your glass, where are you calling from, because tonight we are going to talk about a wine that we revisited. Hi, Marsha McClure Sugameli, and we've got Steph and Tom calling in from Mount Vernon. As always, lovely to see you guys. I hope you enjoyed a balmy 94-degree day in Virginia. And so tonight, I made a mistake last week. I was supposed to do the rosé tonight. I did it last week. But you know what? A wine of this quality deserves to be spoken about twice. But we got some really cool things going on. We're going to announce the new bundle. We're going to talk about everything that's happening at Keswick Vineyards. As always, I have my beautiful wife next to me. So if you have any questions about wine, about Virginia, about life, about anything, please shoot us an email. No, shoot us an email. Just leave a comment and we'll go from there. Yeah, shoot me an email. I'll get back to you in about 5 days. Erica Johansson, Tracy France, Tracy and Paul, and Tom and Steph say you can never talk or drink too much rosé. Could not agree more. We have Stephen Roney, and they are probably calling from Ohio with a Blenheim rosé. Well, it's Virginia, it's Monticello. Love Kirsty, love everybody at Blenheim. We've got Kefany Kring, our wonderful wine club. Kefany is joining us. So shout out to our wonderful wine club manager. Good evening to you, Kefany. We got Lynn Pantos. We got Holly and Chris with friends. Drinking wine in Richmond. Hello to them. Hope you've had a wonderful day. Get yourself situated. I am going to pour myself and my wife a glass of rosé. We're going to talk about it. Discuss how we make it, the world of rosé, and answer any questions you may have. And like I said, we're going to talk about a couple of things that are coming up at Keswick over the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk about our vineyard tours, the new bundle, what's happening on Saturday. We've got incredible music and food. Donna Goff is calling in, Donna and Ed. They have the 2020 rosé and the 19, and they're sharing it with Rebecca Fortney. And Tracy France has got the 18 rosé, and she says hello to Kat. And a big shout out to Pat and Harvey, spinach, salad, and scallops. And they're always from Richmond, so good evening to you folks. So let's give it a minute. Finished off our LVA rosé last week. Stephen, I told you got to buy 3 bottles. 1 bottle never takes you too far. Becky Tavares and John are calling in from Ruckersville, just around the corner from us. So let's get started, shall we? We got a lot to talk about. A couple of short shout outs, first and foremost. Firstly, to Dennis Sugameli, who had surgery today. I know we've been chatting a little bit, so God bless. I hope the surgery went well. I hope the recovery is well. So from all of our family to you, take it easy. I know you're watching. You're not imbibing, you said. And then to Susan Glenn, Dave Maddox. Dave is having some issues, going to have some surgery, so well wishes to Dave as well. And then to the folks at Pollock Vineyards, we went out there on Sunday. We ran into Sarah. They took great care of us, so thank you to Pollock Vineyards. Again, local Virginia, Monticello winery. Go visit, go taste. Folks could really use your patronage, and they were great, and the wines were lovely. But tonight, we are talking about, and it's a half-empty bottle, the LVA Rosé from 2020. And as always, we want to talk about the wine, we want to talk about the label, how we made it, why we make it, concept of rosé in the world, and then as you have any questions, please shoot them your way. So firstly, let me talk about the label. The Le Vendange or LVA Rosé is a very special label to us and our family because it's actually a tribute label to Geneviève. Now, who is Geneviève? Geneviève was the youngest of the 5 kids. Andre, the mother, the matriarch, Al, the eldest, his youngest is Geneviève. She unfortunately passed away at way too young an age, and this is a tribute label to her spirit, her vivacity for life. And as such, when you bottle a wine under a label that has that kind of connotation and that kind of emotional heartstring with the family, you got to do a good job. A lot of people say, let me describe the label. So there we go. Let me. And a husband had swans on their necklaces. Swans pair and mate for life. So obviously, very, very poignant statement. The brooch in the hair is the caduceus. She was a medical doctor, so the snake and the cross. She loved the dogs. There's 3 actually, 2 that you can quite easily see. Let me see, 1, 2. The third one is, if you're looking at the bottles just to the right of her in the silhouette, and obviously Keswick Vineyards. And it used to say the labels changed just a little bit. There was the do no harm, the Latin creed again, in reference to the fact that she was a doctor. Obviously, you can see the screw cap. A lot of people get freaked out about screw caps. No need to be. It's a wonderful closure. It protects the wine. It's going to ensure that you don't get any cork taint, which happens. So these are not wines you're going to age for the next 5 or 10 years. Let's be honest. They're drinkable. They're vibrant. They're food friendly. They're porch pounding kind of wines. They're perfectly chilled. Summertime wines, and that's the intention. So let's talk about rosé a little bit in general before we jump into how we approach it, why we think of rosés the way we do, and then get some feedback. If you're drinking it, please let us know. If you love rosés, let us know as well. So when you talk about rosé, you're talking about not a white, not a red. You're talking essentially about a wine that has some color extraction from sort of red grapes, but not enough to be called a red wine. And there's a couple of ways in which you can make rosé. The typical one, the easiest one, I guess, and it is frowned upon in Europe, in the EU, is obviously blending white and red wine together. Now that is done in Champagne, to make sparkling rosés. In the New World, that happens a little bit more. So you can take some white wine, add a little bit of red wine to it. You're going to get that pigmentation, you're going to get that color, and you can make a rosé. The other way is very much predominated on your intention of the final product. And what I mean by that is, if rosés are made from black grapes, when you crush a black grape, you get white juice. You don't get red juice because you're not extracting the anthocyanins, which are in the layers of the skin. That's why red wines are fermented on the skins, to extract those dark blue and purple hued kind of anthocyanins. So the first thing is, what I mean is, if you're going to make rosé specifically from the bat, your methodology in the vineyard is very different than if you're trying to make a red wine and the rosé from the saignée or the bleed-off method. And let me explain both. Now, when you want to make rosé, we are looking essentially for a couple of things. We're looking for lower sugars. Lower sugars translates to lower alcohols. You're looking for higher acids, lower pHs, and as such, your picking parameter for grapes used exclusively for rosé, you're going to pick the Cab Francs or the Merlot or the Cab Sauves, earlier than what you would normally do, right? You're looking for vibrancy, you're looking for that malic acid. And in Virginia, we don't conserve a lot of acid because our evening temperatures are so warm. We don't have a great diurnal range. A diurnal range very much means the difference between the daytime and evening temperatures. So in the evening, places like California, where you have the fog that comes in from the Pacific Ocean, and that fog, and it regulates, it cools the vineyard down. It could be 80, 90, 100 degrees during the day, but it can get down to 50s at night. The vines refresh, they retain acidity, but they build sugar. And in Virginia, we build sugar, but we lose acidity. So when we're picking specifically for rosé production, you're picking greener, low acid or high acids, low pHs, and low sugars, which translates to low alcohols. The other way to make rosé is if we wanted to say make Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon, we're letting it hang. The sugars are going to accumulate. The pH is going to go up because the acid's coming down. We're going to get more tannin development. The seeds are going to be browner. The flavors are going to be more developed. The intention then is we're making Cabernet Franc. We destem it, we put that must in a tank or a bin, and after 2 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, we're drawing a portion of now pigmented juice off from that tank. So in other words, you've got, say, 1,000 gallons of juice in contact with skins. Say you reduce it by 10%. You're drawing 100 gallons of a wine or a juice that looks like this, because it hasn't fermented on the skin, so it doesn't have a lot of deep color. The intention for that is to really concentrate the remainder of what remains in the tank. So now you have less juice in contact with more skins, so the resulting red wine is going to be darker, more tannic, more richer. The resulting red wine is going to be better. The byproduct of that then is a rosé. Now that rosé, you're dealing with a higher sugar level. So you're going to do a couple of things. You're either going to ferment it dry. Thomas Barnes just jumped in. Dennis Sugamelli has said hi. James Belitho. I just want to make sure we kind of say hi to people. Glenn Johnson and Debbie from the Outer Banks, and Laura Purdy, obviously, just saying hi to everyone. So you have the slightly pigmented juice, but the chemistry is different. The acid is lower, the pH is higher, and obviously you're dealing with a much higher alcohol level, if you ferment dry, because the resulting sugar in that juice is higher. So what do? You either ferment dry with higher alcohol, or you make a wine with a little bit of residual sugar, or sugar that has been unfermented, and you make a wine with a lower alcohol level. So those are essentially the three ways in which you can approach rosé production. The direct press, picking it exclusively for rosé production, whole clusters, very little skin contact, make it as a white, bleeding off higher, riper grapes to make a better red wine, and then the byproduct, and then obviously blending whites and red, sometimes called blush or white Zinfandels or whatever that may be. All right, so that's it in a nutshell. We're talking about rosés. Rosado is what they call in Spain and Italy. It's Rosato, but essentially we're all talking about the same thing. The other thing about rosés that I really, 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 really love is they're so different because they can be made from an incredible amount of varietals. If you think of Loire, Cabernet Franc, if you think of the Southern Rhone, in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, or Tavel or Lirac, you're talking mainly about Grenache. If you go into Provence, the Côte de Provence AOC makes like 60 or 70% of the rosés out there. You're dealing with, what are we dealing with? Mourvèdre and Grenache and Carignan and Cinsault and Syrah. All of which, creates and brings a different personality to the blend. So rosés can really run the gamut of flavors, of colors, of acidity levels, of extraction, of textures. So they're highly, highly, highly complex wines. I think some of the best rosés come from Provence. I do like Tavel, which is on the left-hand side of the Rhone River, which they only make rosés. But what I love about Provençal rosés is it's made as a food-friendly wine with Mediterranean cuisine. Now, for me, we always talk about wine in terms of you've got to be able to drink wine, right? For me, sometimes you don't have the type of food that would normally be recommended for the wine. What happens if you just want to drink a wine? For me, that's really, really important. So this wine is food-friendly, can be paired with a bunch of different food types, but ultimately, if you chill it, you should be able to crack that corkscrew, go sit outside, drink the wine, enjoy the wine, and not worry about what you should be pairing with it as well. All right, so that's rosé in a nutshell. We can also talk a little bit about environmental influences and cool climates and warmer climates. We've spoken about that over the last year and a half in terms of how terroir also affects it. But let's assume rosés are going to show some brightness, so cooler climates, earlier picking, freshness, vibrancy, that sort of thing. Now, oak can be used. Most rosés, I would say, are more tank fermented to conserve that vibrancy, to conserve that acid. But there's no reason to suggest that oak, neutral oak, or even new oak could be used as well. All right, so the LVA, the Viognier, you can see it's 2020, which was a year that we're all going to look on down the line and we're going to say COVID. But for producers in Virginia, the biggest environmental thing that really, really hurt us was that frost, that Mother's Day freeze, May 13th and 14th, and that is significant because in May, especially mid-May, you're already 7 weeks into the growing season. We had bud break in early April, so by May 13th and 14th, we had 12 inches, 14 inches, 16 inches of shoot growth. We had clusters forming. Unfortunately, we got hit with a frost. It wasn't a vector freeze, it was radiation frost. And we got down to 25, 26. Now, vines are highly susceptible at that point to temperatures under 32. Now, we did everything. We burnt things, we prayed, we drank, we prayed some more, and ultimately Mother Nature just proved very, very quickly that at the end of the day, she is in charge. Now, at that point, we knew that we lost some fruit. We were hopeful for secondary clusters, but we also know at this point that the growing season is short. Even if secondary clusters come back, you're getting that in May, mid-May, all the way to maybe August, September, it's a very, very short growing season. We were still hopeful. You're still positive. You say, okay, we lost some fruit, and Keswick sustained some major damage. 95% of our vineyard was crashed. And it sucks because you've done December, January, February, March, you've pruned, you've sprayed, you've done everything you wanted to do, and it takes those couple of hours and it kills you, builds your heartstrings. But the great news is that we get a chance to make wine again, of which we're very excited to. So you're hopeful of secondaries and high quality, but you've got low volume. And then 2020, it just rained. And then, we just had to sort of take it on the chin and say, what, the quality is not there. And what I mean by that is when we at Keswick bottle a wine, and I've said this before, and again, I don't want to understate it, I really want to overstate it, that when we bottle a wine, we really believe, truly believe, whether you don't or not, or you do agree or don't, that's absolutely fine. Good evening, Kathy Clifton. Hey, Stephen. Hey, Kathy. When we bottle a Cab Franc, we believe that it is a style, a quality that builds upon vintages of past. It's the only way that we can be authentic and transparent and be true to ourselves. That's also important for you, the consumer. This is us in a bottle. When you drink that glass, you're going to get an idea of what Keswick is. Now, here's the thing. You might not like that wine, and that's absolutely fine because everyone has a different palate. If you like sweet wines, you're not going to like a lot of what we do. If you like very earthy, Brett-based wines and funky wines, you're not going to like a lot of the fruit-based wines that we do, or the fruit-flavored based wines that we do. So, at the end of the day, we are trying to build a history, a legacy, and we're trying to build a reputation as a world-class wine producer. So there was no reason for us to bottle a Cab Franc, a Merlot, a Cab Sav, because we knew quite honestly that the quality was not there to make those kind of wines. So we looked at it and said, you know what, we're going to make the best bloody bottle of rosé that we can. So unlike picking it riper and bleeding off, these grapes were picked specifically with the intention of making rosé. Now I say grapes because this wine is a blend. So blend, it's quite complicated, and here we go. Viognier, Vidal Blanc, Chardonnay, Verdeo, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Chambourcin, Syrah, Touriga, and a little bit of Norton. Yeah, I know we put some Norton in there. So this is a blend, that we will never, ever do again. The intention is to make Cab Franc and Merlot and Chardonnay and Viognier. And logistically, that was very, very difficult to do for a couple of reasons, more so because the grapes are going to come in at various times. Even though we all got frosted, the Chardonnay came in, then the Viognier, then the Merlot, and then the Touriga, and then the Chambourcin, and then the Cab Franc, and then the Cab Sav, and the PV, and the Norton, and the Syrah. So you're trying to make a wine using 12 different varietals that came in at odd times. Now you notice I didn't say Cab Sav. Cab Sav it was the highest quality fruit that we got in 2020, but again, not the quality that would have allowed us to make a Consensus Red, a Trevelyan Red, a generic Cab, or our Block 7. So we made an Estate Reserve Rosé, and if you stick with us tonight, that's part of the bundle, and I'm really excited to talk about the bundle. So the grapes were picked, at various times throughout the year, but picked with the intention of rosé. So the whites came in first. We only got about 6 barrels worth. Now I say barrels because the juice was put into barrel initially because we didn't have tank space, or small tanks to accommodate that small amount of juice. So the Viognier and the Vidal and the Chardonnay and the Verdeo all pretty much came in together. The fruit was very, very gently pressed. We're dealing with underripe fruit. We did have some sour rot and some damage, so we had to be very careful how do we press it. We only used about 60 to 70% of the normal juice yield, right? We're tasting, we're analyzing, we're looking at the acids, looking at the pH, and looking how it's changing. And at some point we decide, look, the quality is kind of going down. Yes, we're going to get more volume if we keep pressing. But again, we are quality conscious. So we took that juice, put it into a tank, settled it, transferred to barrel, and started the fermentation process. Now, the time we do that, it was about a week later. But then the red started coming in, the Touriga and the Merlot. Again, we're picking them, we're trying to go for 20 and a half bricks, which would give us about 12.5% alcohol. So as the Touriga came in, chilled it down, straight into the press, no destemming, very gently pressed, very little color extraction. Same thing with the Cab Franc. And then the fermenting white juice was put into tank, and then the juice from the reds were added, and we kept adding it. Now the wine was fermented initially without adding commercial strain of yeast. We really wanted the wines to struggle. We were monitoring the food level, the nitrogen levels, and we were constantly adjusting. And as we added more juice, I think the chemistry changes, and then we had to adjust the chemistry. And then the fermentation would go, the sugar would come up, and so on. And as we did it, we kept adding and adding and adding. So the first thing we notice about the wine is the color. It is really an onion skin, salmon, coral color, because all the fruit was very gently pressed. Now there are grapes that liberate more pigmented juice. And the word I'm looking for, those are tine terroirs, I believe. Please look that up. If I'm full of crap, let me know. But I think tine terroirs, Alicante Bouschet, Rourbonnais, Pontac, but Chambourcin and Norton are going to give you more pigmented juice, even if you press it very, very gently. So we did get some color from those grapes, just enough to give it this beautiful sort of onion skin color, very Provençal looking. You know, we didn't want to make a cherry red or a dark Zinfandel based sort of blush. We really wanted to minimize the skin contact, press very, very gently, and conserve that acidity as well. So the fermenting wine was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we were adding more juice to it. So this fermentation went for something like 6 to 8 weeks, something like that, because we were keeping adding juice to it as well. Now, so it started in barrel, tank fermented, tank matured, and again, fermented at much cooler than normal temperatures. We were trying to make a rosé that was a little bit more sort of fruit-based, and hopefully these are the sort of flavors that you're going to get from the wine as well. So let's jump into it. All right, so beautiful color. Now, eyesight doesn't tell you much about quality, but a pretty wine is sure easier to think about drinking. So give it a swirl. Now, I've put it in a glass that a lot of people say you should have Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc in it as well. So I'm seeing if the glass last week, I had it in this glass. So it'd be really interesting to, sorry, I just nicked my wife's glass here. They actually do smell different. Better or worse, that's not the point tonight. But okay, so you're kind of volatilizing, and volatility by definition means the ability to vaporize. So as you're swirling it around, you're volatilizing the essence and the aromas and those thiols, and then it's concentrated, right over here. So those tulip-shaped glasses. Stick your nose in and smell. So what we're not expecting is a lot of sort of black fruit. We're not expecting spicy. We're not expecting tropical, because again, it was a cooler vintage, not sort of sugar development or flavor development. So we're going to think sort of citrus. Citrus is sort of orange peel and lemon. We're going to think a little bit more sort of stone fruits, apricot and peach. And I think you get that in abundance. And then you get some really lovely sort of floral aspects. You get sort of white blossom. You get a little bit of sort of honeysuckle. And then right at the end, you get a little bit of sort of that sort of red fruit kind of component, or sort of a woolly kind of components, which is really interesting. I find that in sometimes aged wine, and Chenin Blanc really has that sort of woolly kind of character. But what I'm really trying to emphasize, the nose on the wine is actually quite expressive. It's very, very, very pleasant. And it's quite complex, because you've got a lot of different sort of aroma clusters. And what I mean by different aroma clusters, it's not like orange and lemon. They fall within the citrus cluster, the stone fruit cluster, the red fruit cluster, the spicy cluster, or whatever it may be. I think there's some complexity on the nose, which is really, really interesting and really sort of enthusing to see. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what it smells like and what it looks like. It's really how it tastes. But before we taste, we always say to you and your loved ones and your families, hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great time. I hope you're enjoying this god-awful kind of hot weather, 94, 96 tomorrow, and then it's going to cool down a little bit. But, I hope everyone's well and enthusiastic about life and the future. So cheers to you all. So, as always, a little bit of a quick rinse, just to wash out what was in your mouth, your food, your previous wine. Now, when you think of wine, you're going to think of acidity as the hallmark of this wine. Now, where you're going to pick up acidity? Acidity is going to really allow that tip of your tongue to salivate, and you're going to count like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. The longer that little tip of the tongue salivates, the higher the acid. So that's the first thing you're going to look for. So let's do that. swallow. So, still salivating. At about 4, it sort of tears off. So it's got really nice acidity. You don't feel any sort of, bitterness, astringency. Your teeth don't feel furry because there's no tannins. Tannins, because skin contact is minimal. It's not fermented on the skins. There's no oak involved really, and then starting the fermentation. So it's very clean. It's very, very light. Now, when we talk about body, that's the next thing you think about. Think of like skim milk, 2% milk, and full cream milk, right? How the wine feels on the mouth, the weight of the wine on the mouth. And then the other thing you want to think about is how the wine finishes. Is it pleasant, and how long does it finish? Better wines are going to finish a little bit longer than cheap wines that disappear very, very, very quickly. All right. So, again, quick sip. You get a lot of that sort of limey, citrus, lemony kind of acidity up there, but then you get this really nice transition to the mid palate. There's no sweetness, by the way. This wine is bone dry. It's 0.1% residual sugar, or 1 gram per liter. The finish is a little short, it's about 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, and then it finishes really, really pleasant. It's got some nice weight in the mid palate. I wouldn't say it's a full-bodied. I would say it's a medium minus bodied wine, but it's got really lovely acidity. It's got really, really lovely bright fruit, and more importantly, it makes you want to take a second sip. So let's do that. Or in my case, more sips than that. So for a wine that comes from a vintage that was really, the hallmark of frost, a short growing season, and really underripe, I really, really think this wine shows a lot more aroma, a lot more character, a lot more complexity than the quality of the vintage suggests. So what does that mean? It means we have a wonderful vineyard. We have a vineyard that evacuated some water, and I think we have a very special vineyard, because at the end of the day, that is winemaking essentially, right? You are trying to express in a glass how the grape was grown. Now in 2020, you're trying to take that and you're trying to amplify it and build it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, the quality of the vintage, the quality of the vineyard site, and the quality of the fruit is going to shine through. Our winemaking methodology and philosophy is that we're not going to cover things up. Now, we could have put a lot of oak on that, and we could have got flavor derived from oak. We could let it go through ML and created this buttery, and we didn't want to do that. This is a vintage wine. It's got charm. It's got balance. Age-worthy? No. Let's be quite honest. This is not a wine you're going to sock away for 3, 4, 5 years, right? Will it be a bottle of vinegar in 4 to 5 years? Hell no. No, the wine's going to be fine. Would it improve in 4 to 5 years? Would your drinking experience be better, or that much better, in 4 to 5 years than it is now over the next 6 months to a year? No, not in my opinion. Now, wine is also experiential, right? So your daughter's getting married, you get engaged, you celebrate a 25th wedding anniversary or 50th wedding anniversary, and you drink this bottle of wine in 2 years? Hell yeah, because of the environment and the condition under which you're drinking the wine's going to taste a hell of a lot better. But if you're drinking it at home, wine is to be enjoyed, is to be shared, is to have food with, it's to drink while you're making food. This wine was made with the intention of drinking it, celebrating life, celebrating each other, and I would not suggest laying this down for a year or two. I would suggest drinking it and buying 2 cases, and drinking and buying 2 cases again. I think it's a lovely, lovely, lovely wine. A lot of people are asking about food pairings. Again, you're going to stay away from heavy dishes or cream dishes or oily dishes. You're going to go very simple summer salads. You're going to go ceviche. You're going to go cheeses. If you want to, heartier sort of foods, meats, I'd say away. Spicy foods, maybe spicy foods, like Spanish food or chorizo or stuff like that, or fish tacos with like an aioli or anything with a little bit of drizzle on lime on there. That might be lovely as well. Cilantro, I think, would go well with it. Kath hates cilantro, so we don't cook with it really. So it is versatile. It's food friendly. I would say this though, this wine is actually being tasted at a little bit warmer temperature than maybe what would be suggested. I'd pop this in the fridge for a couple of hours, get a really nice chill on it, sort of 51, 52 degrees. Wine is obviously, drink what you like, how you like, when you like, right? So if you want to put it in the microwave and drink it out of a plastic cup and that's how you love it, go ahead, do it. Drink it that way. For me, I would serve this really chilled, a nice glass. All that other foo-foo about wine. The only thing I would always say is good wine deserves a decent glass, right? A decent glass is really going to heighten that drinking experience. And that's about it. So I know we've had some questions come in, and let's kind of jump to that. Put the wine aside for 2 seconds, answer some questions, get some thoughts or comments on the wine, and then talk about some other stuff that's happening at Keswick. There's exciting times coming up ahead. So over to my lovely assistant, also known as Boss. What kind of questions and who's asking them, sweetheart?
So Lynn Pantos asked, how does the shape of the bottle affect the wine, and why are there different bottle shapes for different wines?
Yeah, Lynn's a great question. The shape doesn't really affect the wine at all. The color might. Clear bottles, UV light is one of those no-nos. So darker bottles obviously used for very expensive wines, but the shape of the bottle is really not a determination. We could put this in a Bordeaux bottle, in a Burgundy bottle, and you find so many different bottles. You find Syrah in a Bordeaux bottle, and you find it in a Burgundy bottle. So the shape is not. I think there is a not a rule of thumb, obviously, but there is a red wine as Bordeaux and white wine as a Burgundy shaped bottle. But does the shape have an effect on the wine at all? No. Does the size of the bottle have an effect on the wine? Absolutely. Especially in terms of aging. Bigger bottles of wine will age a lot longer than smaller bottles of wine, and so on. These wines are meant to be drunk. Screw cap, very clean. It's not a reductive closure. It actually does allow a certain amount of oxygen in. But these wines are supposed to be drunk within a year or so, all right? Because at the end of the day, we're going to bottle another fresh rosé. You're going to drink it and drink it and drink it. The clear bottle, so you wouldn't want to put this, there's that, what's it called, matchstick or light factor, where UV light can actually affect and alter the taste of the wine. But the shape of the bottle is really not going to affect the wine as well. Now, if this were a Magnum or a double Magnum, yeah, perhaps in time, those wines will be better or could be aged longer. But the shape of the bottle has no bearing on the quality of the wine. And it's really up to the producer. It's is not only the closure. Cork, is it real cork? Is it technical corks? Is it rubber corks? Is it tin? Is it plastic? Is it screw cap? How heavy is the bottle? A lot of people feel that good quality wines need to go in heavy bottles. Like if you have a light bottle and a heavy bottle, you psychologically go, well, that's the better wine. But we're also thinking about our carbon footprint, environmentally friendly. How can we recycle? So all of that comes into it as well. So the size of the bottle, yes. The shape of the bottle, no. Hope that answers the question, but it's a great question. It's really interesting to talk about closures and packaging, because the psychology of buying wine is so important as well. So great, and I hope you're doing well, and God bless.
Glenn Johnson says the shape of the bottle might not affect the wine, but it affects its ability to fit in the wine fridge.
Glenn, it's one of my pet bloody peeves. I swear to God. This bottle fits perfectly in the wine fridge, and we have a couple built into cabinets and downstairs. When you have longer bottles and weird shaped bottles, they never fit in. So that wine fridge says we hold 300 bottles and you get about 120 in. Totally with you. It drives me bonkers when put better wines in more practical shaped bottles for those that want to pick it in a wine fridge. Big bottles don't fit in a fridge either. So I'm with you. One of my pet peeves in terms of shapes of the bottles. So yeah, great comment.
And Stephen Rader says, are there any varietals you believe do not lend themselves well to rosé, and why?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, whites, because they're not pigmented. That's a great question. I think you can. I'm trying to think of all the varietals that rosé is made out of. Zinfandel, Merlot, all the Bordeaux's. There's Norton Rosé. Now, is there a varietal that is better suited? But I also think that's terroir, cooler climate, management of the vineyard, the type of soils that it's grown on, obviously the winemaker's hand as well. So I think you can make incredible rosés out of pretty much anything. Maybe hybrids might be a bit funky, Niagara and stuff like that are very distinctive and have maybe smells that wouldn't normally be associated. In South Africa to do rosé out of Pinotage. And I'm not a big fan of Pinotage per se, but some of the rosés I've had are really impressive. Norton Rosés, we made, when did we make a Norton Rosé? Quite a few years ago. That actually was not bad. I hope that's not recorded, where someone's going to bite me in the butts and say, see, you don't hate Norton. So it is possible, I think, Steve, to make a decent rosé out of most of the grapes. Really depends on the methodology. Now, something like Norton picked the higher developed flavors, the rosé is going to be a little bit different than maybe not. So difficult question to answer. I don't really have a great answer for you. I do apologize, but I can think of so many varietals that are used in rosé production that make incredible rosé. So I would say offhand, I can't pick a varietal that I wouldn't use or wouldn't have a chance to use. So it's a great question for everyone watching. Is there a varietal that you would not like to see being used in rosé production? Cool. Dennis says, I've never seen a Separavi rosé. Truthfully, neither have I. Anyway, all right. What other questions, my love?
Marcia Sigamele said, did you save the recipe for this much of a wine?
It is a mutt of a wine, but such a cute puppy though, hey? No, there's no recipe. First and foremost, I would say, Marcia, to be honest, I wish we had recipes in a way. I wish I could recreate our 9 Cab and our 14 Cab Franc and our 16 Heritage and those wines. We have an ideology of what we would like the wines to be. We have plan Bs and Cs and Ds. There was no sort of inclination that we would get a frost that late. Normally by mid-April you're kind of going, yeah, we're through the gauntlet, we're good to go. Now all of a sudden we're thinking, God, we might have frost mid-May. So it is nice to know that even in years like that, there can be a product that can be made. Hopefully a product that you enjoy. I haven't seen all the comments, but I hope they're mostly positive. I hope no one's sitting there and going, oh God, this is a crap wine. Why the hell would you make this? Now, last year, obviously, we made Touriga. We picked those grapes specifically for rosé. This year, heading into 2021 harvest, we're not sure about what we're going to use if we're going to make a rosé, because the reds are, and the growing season has been phenomenal. And if it stays like this and we get ripeness, across the board from Touriga and Chambourcin and Merlot and Cab Francs, we might make all those into reds. But I do think it's a market segment that's growing. Do we have the recipe? I couldn't even tell you the percentages of the varietals in here. I do know that the dominant varietals, it's mostly Viognier and mostly Cabernet Franc. We did get a fair amount of Cab Franc. That represents about 70% of the blend. I do know that. The remainder, 10 varietals that make the next 30%. I couldn't even tell you the blend. We were pressing. I really should have kind of looked at the volumes that we were putting in, but as you say, it's a bit of a mutt of a wine, it's a bit of a kitchen sink, but I'm actually really, really enthused and excited about the quality of the wine, and I hope you are too. It does do well in the tasting room. It is a great wine, an introductory wine. It's versatile, it's food friendly obviously, but it has that brightness and that sort of lovely fruit and floral component that really doesn't alienate any wine drinker. It's not super sweet, but it has sweetness on the nose. It doesn't have sweetness on the palate. It has acidity, and especially on days like that we've been having and are having for the next week or two, we're really excited about this wine. But we hope we never make it again. We hope we never make a blended rosé like this again, because that would mean we were faced with circumstances that we faced in 2020. But from adversity comes learning. We learned the vineyards, we learned what we can do with the fruit, and I hope you believe we did a fair job. So, yeah, that's about it.
So Kevin says, percentage-wise, this wine is mostly Cab Franc?
It's mostly Cab Franc, followed very closely by Viognier. So it's about 36 Cab Franc, 34 Viognier, and then the remainder is made up from everything else. 16 acres of Viognier, so just by haphazard Viognier, we got some there. Cab Franc did well, we got some fruit. It managed to get through the frost, but the 30% is made up of 10 others. So it's mostly Cab Franc, followed very, very closely by Viognier, and then I said 10 other varieties in there as well. So it's a great question. If you notice, Kefany, in the tech notes, I didn't put percentages because I quite honestly didn't know. All right. Hey, so go ahead. Never interrupt your wife.
Oh, no. I was just going to ask you more questions.
Yeah, no, please.
Okay, so Erica Johansson asked, the frost events you've had, is that changing any of your plans for what you grow in the future at all, like favoring later varietals?
That is an incredible question, and yes. So the question was from Erica Johansson was, when you plant grapes on a property, on a piece of property, you're looking at the soil, but you are looking at the environmental conditions. You're looking at the climate. Now, what is climate? Climate is the data taken over 10, 15, 20 years. Now, you wouldn't say the climate of Virginia is what we saw last year. That's just the growing season. Now, is that a once in a lifetime event? Is this something we're going to see? Are we going to see warmer than normal winters? Are we going to see later than normal frosts? It's a possibility for sure. So yeah, it does sort of go along into, if we're going to plant, what are we going to plant? When we did an expansion and started that off in 2016, and then in 17 and 18, we put in almost 20 additional acres. What we did not put in was any Chardonnay or any Viognier, other than the only white we put in was Petit Manseng. Part of that, Erica, plays into your point, is that we were well aware that if we get frost, and now we got frost every third or fourth or fifth year, we had a couple, we always go through days where we were very close, but I remember in 2016 or 16 I think it was, we had frost April 6th and April 9th, and I remember we had everybody, all the wine club members at the, now that was early, and we bounced back. So we decided not to plant Chard, not to plant Viognier, because if we got frost, we would lose pretty much all of that. So we planted Cab Franc, Cab Sav, and Petit Verdot, which are late season or late budding varietals that should give you a little bit more protection against frost, but frosts that come in, in the first or second week of April. When you get a frost that's mid-May, everything is susceptible to frost, and then it's about site. Obviously frost is cool, so if you had elevation, you plant up high. If you had elevation over 900 feet, you did better. Northern Virginia did really well. They're 2-3 weeks behind us normally, and for us, we're at 575 feet. Now, the problem is, if you plant late season varietals, late budding, you're also harvesting later in the year. Now, we also get late season rains, like mid-September, late September into October. Those varietals might not be able to ripen, and then it's why we don't make Cabernet each and every year. We might make a Trevelyan, and we might make it into Consensus. So there's pros and cons for each varietal, but I think it does play along, and it comes into the conversation when you're looking to expand, because there's an investment in expanding. That vineyard has to be in the ground for the next 25 to 30 years, and it has to produce the kind of fruit that'll give you the chance to make the kind of quality wines that we want to do. So it's a great question. The weather's changing. How it's going to change? Is it a one and done kind of thing? This year has been the driest year. Since 2010. We've had very little to no rain. This is the antithesis of 2018, where we had a lot of rain. Farmers and growers are actually begging for a little bit of rain just to revitalize the vineyards, just to, the young vines are going to struggle in conditions like this. Older vines are doing okay because the root system's deep. They have access to water in the subsoil. So growing grapes is tough, and what Virginia doesn't have is a consistent climate. It's a consistent growing season. So you do your best, but yes, it definitely comes into the conversation. And if we were to expand, I don't see us planting early budding varietals. I don't see us planting, Chardonnay or Viognier, although I think we have some incredible soils and incredible plots that will allow us to make some really special fruit. The risk is too great planting those varietals. So yeah, you're bang on, and great question, and always thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Shall we take one more question before we talk about some stuff going on at the winery this weekend and beyond?
Sure.
I mean, she has to find a question.
Dennis asked, did you get the torrential rains last night that they got in Chesterfield, and how are the vineyards evolving so far this year?
We did not. We didn't get torrential. I saw, if you get on Facebook and, prayers and thoughts with Christine Vrooman and family at Ankita Ridge, I don't know if you saw the footage they posted, love. They had a hailstorm that was just insane, and I hope they did okay. So it shows you that's risk everywhere. So the vineyard right now is dry, which is good to a certain extent. The young vines are struggling a little bit because their root systems are a little bit superficial, close to the surface, and there's not a lot of water. So tomorrow we're actually watering young vines because they need it. The older vines are doing okay. The growing tips, there's no more tendrils, there's no more growing shoots, which means the vines are now switching over from a vegetative growth phase to a reproductive growth phase. So what that means is the leaves that we have on the vines, those are the leaves. Those are the leaves that, and leaves for me are the lungs of the vines. Those are the things that are going to ripen the fruit. Now, the fruits, we've got some really, really heavy hanging stuff that we have to drop a little bit. Petit Verdot is one of those. Everything else is actually really nicely balanced. And if we stay like this, we might have a pretty phenomenal year. Now, a lot can change. We're only going to start harvesting in about a month. And as you know, if you don't like the weather, just give them an hour in Virginia. So we are hopeful and optimistic, but cautiously so. We've been through these growing seasons where leading up to harvest, it's great, and then all hell goes loose in that. And we hope that's not the case. So if it stays like this, and we can manage to keep the canopy healthy, which is a lot easier in a dry season than a wet season, if we can keep those weeds suppressed and have those vines grow, and if we can make sure they have enough water so they're not shutting down, because if vines, if they're heat stressed, they shut down. The stomata on that leaf closed, the leaf turns away from the sunlight, and the leaf feels warm. It's not transpirating, and we'll know if we're not seeing any sugar accumulation. So if we can keep the vines healthy, give them some access to water. Now there is water deep, and the vines that have been in the ground for 10 or 15 years, their root systems are deep enough so they can access that water. That looks good. We might be in for a phenomenal vintage, and we're excited because we have a lot of reds. And the reds that we have, that Cab Franc, that Cab Sav, that PV, that Merlot, they require ripeness, and they require tannin development, and they require physiological ripeness, and we're getting there. So highly optimistic and super excited about the chance of making some pretty cool wines in Virginia this year. So great question. We'll keep you updated. So let's follow on. I know we've only got about 12 minutes. Got a lot to talk about in terms of what's coming up. If you don't have plans for this weekend, think about coming to Keswick. The weather's going to be beautiful. We have Jason Burke playing music, and he is phenomenal. We have Martin's Grill, so no need to bring a picnic lunch. You've got music, you've got wine, you've got people, you've got friends, you've got family. You've also got incredible food that's coming your way. And we are open 10 to 5. We would love to see you. I am back at work. It's double-edged. Love seeing everybody again. Miss my guys and my wife, but I'll be there on Saturday. We would love for you to come out and spend some time and enjoy life and drink some Keswick wines with us. A couple of things coming up. Vineyard tours. We are going to do some vineyard tours. We haven't specified the dates yet. We're trying to figure that out. But we are going to do a Saturday and a Sunday walking tour just before harvest. Now, those that have come in those April Earth Day tours, you see the vineyard in a very different light. The vineyard's very different now. A lot more to talk about, a lot of really cool things. So keep an eye out for that. We'll probably send that information out in the next couple of days. Wine Club members, obviously, you get a little bit more of a head start to jump on in. We would love to have you. What else can we talk about? The bundle. We are continuing Tasting Tuesday, and boy, do we have an incredible bundle for you. So it is the 2020 Estate Reserve Rosé, which is, 100% Cabernet Sauvignon, and that we're doing next Tuesday. The following Tuesday, we have a surprise guest. We're not going to tell you, someone who's going to chat. Someone we think you should listen to. It could be a marketer, it could be a grower, it could be a winemaker. Take a break, we focus on someone else. The following week, we're doing the Le Vendange Syrah 2020. Now, those that know me know that Syrah is arguably my favorite varietal to drink. And I think we made something that is quite special and you're going to love. Following Tuesday, we have another guest. We have a surprise guest. The following Tuesday, we have what we think might be, because we do have the incredible Block 7 from 2017 and the Heritage, but we have the 2019 Block 7 Cab Sav that we bottled June 24th. These are wines that will take some time before they come into the market. They're highly discounted, by the way, $99 for the 3 bottles. We hope you partake. The link will be on the website. Give us a call, keswickvineyards.com. Come to the tasting room. Give Karen a call, Kathleen a call. Email me, kind of get us on Facebook, obviously, as well. The other thing is, we would love for you to kind of like us on Facebook. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. If you see what we do, if you have any questions, thoughts, like us, share us, tell us what wines you're drinking as well. One last thing. It's a little bit different. USA Today is running a poll on the best AVAs, and the Monticello AVA is up in the running. Right now, we are sitting 8th out of 20. Walla Walla is first, and Finger Lakes is second. We really want to get that Monticello AVA. It's on my Facebook page, but check it out, USA Today, the AVAs. A vote for our wonderful wineries and people would go a long way, and I know for me, obviously, being a part of the Monticello AVA, I'm very, very proud of everything that we do out here. And if you had 2 seconds and got onto that, I don't have the link with me right now, but check it out, and we'll go from there. Stephen Rader says our bundle arrives tomorrow. So Stephen, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to tasting ones. Erica and everyone saying, don't forget the little guys.
They're both asleep.
They are both. No way, that does not happen. Both the boys are asleep. I promise you, we would love to share them and show you them, but they are asleep. And if you're a parent, you know that don't wake sleeping babies. Glenn Johnson said he's already voted for the AVA. Really, really, really appreciate it. You can vote every single day, so I'm really trying to get people to vote. You don't have to vote, just vote. Vote for something that you like. So final thoughts, question really is, everyone's drinking, you really should drink rosé. They're lovely wines, they're incredible wines. They're not always a bad product of a bad year. Sometimes, they are just bled off to make better reds. But rosés are great. They're food friendly, they're vibrant, they're versatile in terms of style and flavors. And as wine drinkers, I think rosé should be a wine that you look at. For me, I love Provençal rosés and French rosés, but you get incredible Italian rosés and South African rosés and rosés out in California. And that's about it. I don't know if there's any other questions. So exciting times, just as a recap, the bundle, $99, 3 incredible wines over the next 5 weeks. So we do the first one next week, skip, but we're still doing Tasting Tuesday with special guests, then the Syrah, excuse me, then a guest, and then the Cabernet. And then we go into harvest, and we'll see how that looks like. But we're hoping to do some really cool things so you can kind of get a closer sort of viewpoint on what we do in the cellar. Martin Scroll and Jason Burke, all at Keswick Vineyards this Saturday. The walking tours, look out for that email. They go really, really, really quickly. And vote for the Monticello AVA. And that's about it, really. And again, Dennis, hope you're doing well, with surgery. I see you kind of chatting, so you can't be doing too badly, but God bless you, love you, hope you're doing all right. And to everyone that watches and continues to kind of jump on up, we really appreciate it. So I would say time to finish up with the thought of the day, or whatever it may be. As always, what's more important is your health and the well-being of us and the country. We recognize that we are extremely blessed to live in this beautiful world, and in America and in Charlottesville, I know I am. The future for harvest looks positive. I'm excited about the opportunity of the wines that are going to come from this area. I know, talking to some of my colleagues, they're very, very excited. But as always, we want to say thank you, and I also want to give credit to the staff. Obviously, Keswick is predominantly a hospitality business, and we are so appreciative of you, the customers, and our wine club members. But I'm also very appreciative of our staff and our ownership, who allows us to do what we do. And the tasting room staff, the Trents and the Rons, and the Emily and Chelsea and Kefany and Karen and Anna, who do such an incredible job, and Sybil and Joan. Those wonderful people who really sort of provide such world-class service to you. I hope you feel that way. And again, the future's bright. The wine is going to get better. I promise you that. And I think that's a great way to finish up. So cheers. God bless. Drink local, support local, but be kind. Tell people you love them. Give someone a hug. It means a lot. Doesn't cost you anything. And in just a couple of days, 6 days and 23 hours, we're going to be drinking an incredible Cab Sav Rosé. And I cannot wait to see you next week. But hopefully I get to see you on Saturday at the winery. Come visit us. We'd love to see you. But until then, have a wonderful, wonderful evening from our family, Keswick, and then ours, Kath, Aria, Alakai, and Maverick, who are sleeping. They all say hi. We all say thank you. And we love you guys tremendously. So have a wonderful evening, and God bless you all. All right. See ya. Bye.